This morning I want to talk to you guys about a blockchain. What is a blockchain? And give you a new idea of how to think of blockchains and how to build things on top of blockchains. So a lot of the answers you'll get when you ask what is a blockchain is you'll hear that it's a distributed ledger, that all the entries are spread among all the participants of the network, that all transactions are public, and that this database of information keeps growing forever and ever and ever, which is actually kind of cool because for long after all of us are going to be gone, every 10 minutes, there will be a new Bitcoin block that comes out every 10 minutes. So we're laying down information into a machine that can be interpreted, not just balances, but new things as well. So my idea behind a blockchain is that it does two things, two very, very important things. And this is the real innovation of a blockchain, is that it enforces digital scarcity. In the real world, we have actual scarcity. So this clicker is one of one clicker. But in the digital world, you could always take music or videos or digital content and duplicate it an infinite number of times. And so you couldn't actually have value for something on a computer. So what a blockchain does is actually enforces digital scarcity. It says that there are only a certain number of Bitcoins, there are only a certain number of Ethers, or other tokens that exist that can be tracked and watched on the blockchain for all to see. The second thing that a blockchain does is allow for the assignment of ownership. So as value is created through scarce digital objects, the blockchain actually allows you to move those things without permission to any other entity in the world. So we have algorithmic tokens. This is what we started with in the blockchain space. Bitcoins, Litecoins, Ethereum. There's a function somewhere, an equation, that dictates how many of these tokens will exist. In Bitcoin's case, every 10 minutes, there is a block reward. It started out with giving you 50 Bitcoins if you were to mine a block. And every 4 years, that gets cut in half. So 25 Bitcoins, and right now it's at 12.5 Bitcoins. It's very predictable, and everyone knows what the cycle of these things will be. They all contain a certain number of attributes that we find extraordinarily beneficial when we build applications on top of blockchains. The first one is that they are finite. This is the essence of digital scarcity. You know that there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoins in existence. That's an absolute fact. It's agreed to by the entire network. And so therefore you know that the number in circulation are in fact finite. The second thing is that you know that they are authentic. So when a block is mined, a Bitcoin miner, again, gets that block reward, and all Bitcoins can be seen to trace back to that initiation, that token generation event. So they are all, in fact, authentic. Nobody can have the same Bitcoin twice. They're also transferable. So if I know your address, I can take the value that I hold on a blockchain and send it to you. Now, once I send it to you, it is now possessible. So unless you actually have the private keys, no one can seize those tokens. No one can take your Bitcoins from you. You have complete access to disposal, to usage, to anything you want to, so long as you control these things. It's an absolute bearer asset. And they're also traceable. This being a public network, you can actually, as I said, for the authenticity, you can trace all transactions back to their initiation point and every single movement of tokens on a blockchain. So what you see in a decentralized network is something that's completely balanced. Right? It has delegation. There are certain responsibilities like miners have. There's also checks and balances. One thing people don't necessarily realize is that Bitcoins are actually really, really good at one thing, and that is spam prevention on the Bitcoin network. You see, these networks grow forever, and you want them to grow at as slow a rate as possible because otherwise it gets too big too fast. So therefore, Bitcoins impose a cost to record a transaction on the network. That is actually a balance that allows the network to stay alive. They're entirely autonomous. There is no server that runs Bitcoin. It's simply a collective of individuals and participants on a network that all agree upon the same rule set. And therefore, it is self-sufficient. Okay, it requires no input, no output, and it lives pretty much all by itself. Well, this is an image of a terrarium. This is a self-contained living ecosystem. A sealed bottle that contains oxygen, carbon dioxide, bacteria, soil, and life. And inside this little contained bulb is everything you need for a living system. Well, I want to propose today that a blockchain is, in fact, a living thing. Not biological life, but technological life. A living thing that is freestanding, that does not require a server or centralized control. And it being fully balanced means that it's self-sufficient. So when you look at it as a connection of nodes, you'll actually see those same responsibilities and balancing around. The cells in your body are recycled every 7 years, just like the nodes and the miners and the participants on the Bitcoin network. But yet, 8 years from now, I'm going to be the same living thing. So as all the various cells of the organization begin to cycle themselves through, the living being, the living thing that is the blockchain, persists and continues on. So we started with algorithmic tokens, Bitcoins, Litecoins, Ether, etc. An interesting thing happened in 2013. There was an exchange called Mt. Gox, and it got hacked, and it had lots and lots of problems. Well, at one point, there was a very brief window where the US government had seized their US bank accounts, and you couldn't withdraw dollars out of your Mt. Gox account anymore. You could, however, withdraw your Bitcoins. And since it was a contained network, the price of Bitcoins on Mt. Gox soared because everyone wanted to get their money off. And I asked the question, why in the world can't I withdraw my dollar balance into my Bitcoin wallet? This could solve this problem. And so I began thinking about what would be required for that. Well, we'd need a layer on top of Bitcoin that allowed for the managed issuance of tokens, not algorithmic, something to keep dollars in balance. So we realized that if you had a one-to-one ratio between dollars in a bank and tokens issued on a blockchain, you could take advantage of the digital scarcity aspect of a blockchain. That also extends to things like equities and securities and property. Anything in the real world, you now have a one-to-one mapping. Interesting thing about all of these tokens we're talking about today and all of the tokens you've seen, they are all what we call fungible. So they are all exchangeable for one another and they all contain the same value. So one Bitcoin that I have is equivalent to one Bitcoin that anyone else in this room has. They're all completely exchangeable with one another. So the next question is, what happens if we don't make them fungible? What happens if we make them programmable? As I said, all the tokens we've described and all the tokens you've heard described today contain these 5 attributes. And these are extraordinarily powerful in rebuilding a new world economy. This is the progression we've taken. We started with Bitcoin, mining and proof of work, algorithmic issuance. We then built the Omni layer, which was called Mastercoin at the time, on top of Bitcoin to create for managed issuance and smart contracts. Using that technology, we created Tether to do a one-to-one exchangeable token for US dollars sitting in a reserve. The next step is what happens when you have objects, no longer digital assets, but actual tokens that are smart and programmable. Here's where it gets very, very, very interesting. If you have a programmable digital object, it's no longer just a balance in your Bitcoin wallet. It actually is something that has code attached to it. It can be told what to do. It can be told what to do with other things in the wallet, with things in the real world. So suddenly, instead of having just a balance in your wallet, you actually now have something that you can interact with, something that's fun, something that's experiential. What happens if they're combinable? Okay, once you have programmability, the possibilities are endless. So imagine that I have a digital object that are puzzle pieces. They're all sitting in my Bitcoin wallet, or I'm collecting them as I walk around a mall. Brands can leave little tracers for me. And as I walk along, I pick up pieces. And as soon as I combine them, they can become something else in my Bitcoin wallet. These things are also redeemable, just like tethers. But they can be programmable and redeemable. Let's say that Coca-Cola wants to issue a brand-issued digital object. By the way, this is a digital object that sits in a Bitcoin or Ethereum wallet. I can get a free Coke. But Coke wants, of course, others to have Coke as well. And they want to reward me for spreading the word. So this programmable object, I can now share with other people in my social network and actually earn back more and more Coca-Cola until I get a free Coke again. These things are also network aware. So listening to Twitter feeds, listening to sports events, RSS feeds. All of a sudden, you have objects that can change their state within your wallet. They can change their value within your wallet. In the US, we have a sporting event called NASCAR. And you can imagine that a digital object company would create, in fact, trading cards. Now, if you actually own this trading card at the moment that one of the racers actually wins the race, that card can change. That card can increase its value because you hold it in your hand. See, this is where it gets very, very interesting. Finite, authentic, transferable, possessible, traceable, programmable, combinable, redeemable, and network aware. Artificial intelligence is the next huge play for the world, and autonomous digital objects will interact with one another. So this, in fact, is what a Bitcoin wallet will look like very, very, very soon. It's not just a balance. It's a collection of things that you own, that you get to play with, that you get to see. And here's the coolest part. You are an individual, and you are scarce. You are actually a digital object yourself. You are an entry in a database at your hospital, with your insurance company, with your government, with your bank, and these things don't talk to one another. One day they will. And this is a topic that I'll go into in a subsequent talk. But just keep in mind, you yourself are a scarce digital object. So I'd like to conclude today by telling you about the future. And it's in all of your minds today. We're at the intersection of experiential technology. where items on a blockchain are programmable and interactive. And with unbounded creativity in this room, we can duplicate the world, we can create the world's best games, we can simulate the entire environment of economies on a blockchain now. So thank you all for this. Have a great day.